Welcome to the Inspiring Father Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler McAdams. It is fantastic to have you guys here today. And today I just wanted to bring up a topic, episode 2, season 4 that we're doing. I'm really ramping up to going to be getting more podcast episodes here coming up. I've got a couple interviews coming up, so I'm excited to share those with you guys out there. But today I really wanted to I was inspired myself to talk about a topic, who's driving your life? I've had some situations in the past where, recent past even, that I've let people drive my life rather than myself. And I've learned that, well, first off, let me ask you something. When the pressure is hitting, who is actually driving your life? Is it you? Is it your stress? Is it your ex? Obviously, is it your past, your bank account, your emotions? And the reason I kind of wanted to bring this topic up was for multiple things, right? I think it's just, right now, there's struggles I've had every day. It's not a thing where my emotions are perfect all the time. I don't think any of our emotions are perfect all the time. Stress is going to be there. Financial, you're dealing with ex-partners that you're with, you have kids with, co-parenting stress, courts, all these things that you could be stressed about. Obviously there's so many things that create over anxiety and stress and overwhelming, and your life gets out of control, and you realize that you're not driving your vehicle. You're not driving the car anymore. You're allowing other people to drive your car and create that stress rather than you being a little bit more calm under pressure. Taking it, understanding of, hey, this is what I need to do to fix myself. It's an illusion of control, right? When someone else takes the wheel for your car or for when you're driving, for example, say an Uber driver, right? Or you're driving with an Uber driver, or you're getting in now these Waymos, right? And you are you're letting somebody else drive you to your destination. You're putting a lot of trust and faith in that vehicle to take you to that next destination. And sometimes there's going to be situations where you have to trust the situation, but you obviously for those 20, 30 minutes or however long you're driving, you really don't have any control of the vehicle to drive and steer where you got to go. And I bring that point up and that analogy up because I think it's so important that it relates to our life in so many ways, right? When we wake up reactive, when we scroll reactively, when we parent reactively, or we're playing video games because we're trying to avoid everything. We're trying to get rid of the problems that we have to face, the fears that creep in all the time, right? You tell yourself, I'm handling it, I'm doing my best, I'm grinding. But at the same time, here's the truth. If your mood determines your leadership, you're not driving. You're being driven. So if you're letting your emotions drive you to how you feel and to how you're going to react to things and how you're going to, quote unquote, grind, right? You're being driven. You're in a reaction loop. You're being triggered. Your emotion spikes. Your tone is shifted. You react, and then you just regret it later. And so it's a cycle of issues and challenges that you can't control in your own emotions, in your own ways, right? So I want to ask you this. How many times have you walked away from a moment thinking, that wasn't the man I want to be? That's when you weren't driving. So I need you to ask yourself and really think about where you're at right now. What is your life look like? Is it where you want it? Of course, it's probably not nobody's life is perfect. There's always room for growth. There's always room for, figuring out how to manage your story, how to get to the next chapter, to the next character that you want to be. If you want to be that superhero dad, that comes with more presence and more time and more effort and managing your schedule and figuring out how to make them the most focal point of your life, right? And it comes back to a point where fathers, we have to work. We have to we have to provide, we have to protect, and we have to be emotionally available for your spouse, your partner, your kids, all these people in your life, you have to be emotionally available, and it gets draining a lot, right? It gets draining, so it begins to that, goes back to the analogy of your life is not really being controlled by you sometimes, right? You're being driven in so many different areas. You're zigzagging through life in a lot of ways. And, I've had that. I've had that with myself where, I was married for 10 years and it was an up and down relationship for me, right? It was an up and down relationship. But, for what I've learned from it is that, I wasn't perfect. I had my flaws, of course, and it was a zigzag of life, of emotions, and of, we struggled for a little bit. We made it for a little bit, and then, just we had the kids, and it was a lot, right? 10 years of marriage can do that. You're not really driving, you're just kind of reacting, you're surviving in a lot of ways. And a lot of us live that way because sometimes it's the only way you could do it, right? And sometimes you're in that season where you have to survive, right? And that's okay. But I just want this episode is really to reflect on that deep question of who's actually driving, and where do you want to go in your life? Where do you want your car to drive? Where do you want your life to drive to? What path do you want to take? If you're in this season right now where you're undecided and you're just kind of drifting and you're just you're trying to figure out, okay, what is my next step? How do I financially become more secure? How do I become emotionally secure with my kids and my family and all these things? And how do I get to that next level in business? It comes down to really deep thinking. Where do you want to go? How do you get clarity? How do I build structure? And that comes with accountability. It comes with friends, coaches, different things that you can create your life with a pattern of ways to uplift you, right? Ways to take you to that next level. You can't do it by yourself. Isolation is a big problem, and I struggle with isolating myself sometimes. I'm not perfect. I like to do things on my own. I like to figure it out on my own and trial and error, and it's cost me sometimes. It's cost me a lot of things, and it's cost me a lot of damage sometimes, and emotionally. And sometimes I question myself if I'm enough, but I may be talking to myself right now, and that's okay. But I really wanted to point out to people that you have to just, whatever season in life you're in, even if you're at a high level part of your life where everything's going great, you still have to realize who's driving your car, who's driving your path, where are you going, how are you getting there? You have to ask yourself these questions. You really have to take that back and really finalize, how do I get to that next level without sacrificing this that I really want? So it's really just mapping out and planning out your situation, your life, writing it out and figuring out, okay, I don't want this anymore in my life. I don't want this toxic person in my life, this relationship. I don't want to be the father that is not remembered as a present father. I want to be somebody that actually creates a life that my kids will remember, and that my kids will tell stories to their kids about, and somebody that treats me as as their hero. I get a lot of followers and DMs that say their dad was their hero, and that means a lot, because that tells me that they're out there. There's heroes to their children's story, but there's also fathers out there that are like, my dad was non-existent. I wish I had a dad. It's just like, you never know. And I had 3 kids with my marriage. I went through a separation. It was amicable, I would say, but we had struggles. I've known her. I knew her half my life, so it was really hard to adjust to that, right? And we're working on the co-parenting as we go along. Things are getting better with the co-parenting. And then I moved on too fast in another relationship, had another child, and that created a lot more pressure for me. And I learned that you have to heal first. You have to heal yourself before you take that next step, right? You have to heal yourself before you take that next step. I ended up in that situation where I was not driving myself. I was not driving my vehicle. I was not driving my life. I was reacting. I reacted in my life. I ended up feeling so insecure with myself, thinking, okay, well, I'm not a person that I didn't know what to do with myself because I didn't expect to be in that situation per se, right? I didn't expect it. A dose of reality hit me, and then I was trying to find someone to help or to help me through it, right? And things moved too fast. I wasn't ready, and it just happened, and things just happened, and I'm grateful for the blessings that I've gotten out of that, and my kids, and being a father is the greatest blessing, and we are the most important relationship in our child's life. I will say that until I'm dead, right? I think I'll say that until I'm dead because I think it's so important that fathers, you need to realize how important you are to your children's life. You have to realize how much you mean to them. If you're a single father, if you're a co-parent, if you're married even, right? Listen to this. You have to continue figuring out how to drive your life to another level, right? You're always driving, but sometimes you just don't know where you're going. You're reacting, and you're with emotions, you're reacting with non-clarity, you're reacting with just stress, and you're overwhelmed, and life happens. That is life. Pressure of life is nonstop. It doesn't stop for anybody. So, it's one way you have to shift your momentum. You have to shift your mindset. You have to shift your vision, right? You have to shift it by realizing you can't control what's happened to you in your life. You can't always control it in the sense of that, but you can control how you show up. You can control how you show up with a good attitude. You can show up how you show up with gratitude. You can show up how you find ways to overcome things that were out of your control. You can't let that speed bump, you're driving, you hit a speed bump, you can't let it overcorrect you and take you off of the beaten path that you're going, right, when you're driving. So you have to realize that people are gonna come in your life that are gonna try to take your peace. They're gonna try to take your money. They're gonna try to take there's always going to be those people that are just trying to ruin your life to better theirs, right? Because they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to, they're just surviving. So it's a reactionary thing, right? It's a cycle of different things that people are really trying to hijack your wheel. They're trying to hijack your wheel and steal your car, where you have to be the protector and say, no, I'm not doing that. You know who you are. Find who you are. Be who you are. And be the leader that you need to be for your family. Here's 5 things that hijack that wheel. One is emotion. If you're snapping, if you're shutting down, you're withdrawing, so you're going in a quiet place. Emotion is driving you. Okay? If you're reacting, you're snapping, you're shutting down, you don't want anything, you're avoiding, emotion is driving you. The second is past hurt. If you're hurt, you got hurt in your past. Everybody's been hurt. Everybody's been damaged at some way. We hurt each other. Unfortunately, I wish life was, everybody can get along. I wish everybody can just be kind to one another and love each other and realize that we're all here for a greater purpose, and that is to make the world a better place if we want to, if we choose to. We're all here to live a life that should be full of just love, passion, kindness, generosity, giving back. That's really what life's about. We have to do that to where, it gives another person a chance, right? We're not born when we're and we don't become born and want to hate other people. I mean, that's not how, something caused that to hate other people. Something caused that to create a challenge and make other lives hell, right? Because they want to be proving themselves to other people. Does that make sense? So past hurt, divorce, I went through that. Betrayal, rejection, if your reactions are coming from that wound, you're not going to be present, right? You're not going to be present. The third would be ego. You have to win arguments all the time. You have to be right. You have to be in control. Now, when I mean control of your life, I don't mean like you physically like, oh, I'm going to control this person, because you can't control other people. You can't be over controlling, right? You could be structured, right? You could be structured in how you drive and control your life, of course, with time management, with boundaries, right? But trying to control the other people, you're just creating a negative reaction. You're just creating a negative force in your life, because people that are over controlling, they end up miserable. They're miserable themselves, in my opinion. They're miserable themselves. They don't know what else to do, so they're trying to hang on and control every aspect they can, because it gives them security. It gives them that security blanket, right? So, if you're trying to win arguments with your spouse or your partner, you're trying to be right all the time. Look, I've been there. I would say, I'm not saying I'm not perfect, that I would not want to win an argument, right? I would want to be right. I want to be right. Of course, we all want to be right. We all want to be right. Of course, I'm a lefty, so I say you always want to be left, right? That's just a funny thing I say. But, you always want to be right, in the sense of because it makes you feel good, right? It makes you feel, excuse me, it makes you feel proud. It makes you feel worth. It makes you feel of worth, right? It makes you feel that you have something to be out there to give, right? That you won this argument. You won, that your ego is powerful. You're winning in life, and you want to showcase it, and that's great. Winning in life is a powerful thing. It gives you confidence. It gives you more ability to give back, more freedom to give back, more love to give, right? When you're winning and you want to be right, that ego could work in a positive way, but when it's drifting into a negative, and it's hijacking you, that's not going to work. You're not driving your vehicle, right? The fourth is fear. This is a huge one. Everybody has fear. Fear creeps on everyday life. It's a non-negotiable. Fear is going to try to crush you all the time. Whether it's financial fear, whether you're battling in a court, scared to see if your kids are going to be able to be with you if you're a single father, fighting for your kids' lives, or you're battling child support over. Like I've had a lot of fathers that reach out to me that I've worked with that are going through these struggles, because and that's scary. That's a scary thing to be in. Like that is a situation where you don't know what's going to happen with your kids. You want to protect your kids. That's your job, and you're fighting for your kids, but sometimes your partner is not as a great a person, right? But here's what I'm going to say to those fathers out there, and this is kind of a co-parenting tip, or if you're new into single fatherhood. I don't know who's going to hear this, but listen, if you're a single father, listen to me right for a minute. You have to treat that other person as best you can, okay? The relationship may have not worked, but yes, of course, set boundaries and demand respect and appreciation as best you can, with those boundaries. But at the same time, like, if you're going to hold on to a grudge, if you're going to hold on to a past error or mischaracter of judgment, it's not going to serve you well, okay? So if you have to co-parent with another person, don't be negative towards them. Don't be, rude. Of course, you can't control what they say and what they do, but you control how you react. So drive that vehicle as a co-parent to be a better person to them. Treat them right. It's okay that it didn't work. You tried. It sucks. It's hurtful. It's not fun. But at the same time, like, your kids deserve better than that. Your kids are the most important part of the puzzle for that. And you have to understand that you don't want to lose connection with them. It goes back to fear. Fear is, if you fear losing connection with your kids because you're going through a divorce, or you're going through challenges, you can't live in that kind of fear, right? So you just have to, it makes you reactive. Fear makes you reactive. So don't be reactive. Be supportive as best you can in all situations. Be supportive. Doesn't mean you have to be as close as you once were with your ex-partner, but you have to just be kind. That's all it is. Just be kind. I can't stress that enough, is just to be a kind person to them, because at the end of the day, and I know there's a lot of deadbeat dads, a lot of deadbeat moms out there where they don't give a crap. They're just in their own world. But I wish they would just understand that if you just be a little bit, have some passion and some kindness, things go a long way, right? So, and the fifth and final one, I'm going to go with, so right now we've had emotion, we've had hurt, we've had ego, we've had fear. The fifth and final one is drifting, okay? You don't have structure. You don't have standards. You don't have daily anchors that help you. When you're drifting and you're just lost and you're just like, oh man, I don't know what to do with myself. For example, there's days I drift at times, right? But I have to structure myself. Okay, I got to journal, got to get my routine, my morning routine. I got to do the things I need to do that help me stay focused. I listen to other podcasts, for example. I listen to different things. I Add My Lead is a big one. That gets me grounded, gets me focused on the vision that I want, and gets me getting after it, right? So, and then when I do have my kids, they help me stay aligned as well. So it's a tough situation, but we drift. Social media gets you to drift. Games on your phone, games on video games, they get you to drift out of life because it's easy to drift. Our brains don't want to focus on things. They don't. We have to train them to focus on the things that we need them to focus on. But there's a lot of times where our brains just don't want to do anything. And that's okay. We have to just take that moment and be like, all right, just reflect for a minute. Sit there and just reflect, and just be calm with it, right? Slow yourself down for a minute and just say, hey, things are chaotic right now. I just need to just sift them out and put them out of my head, write them out on paper, talk about it with somebody, whatever it takes. Post a video on social media just to get it out of your head. It's not, we overthink it. We overcomplicate things and we allow ourselves to drift off into this never land. And trust me, I've been there. I'm there at times. And it's something that I have to tell myself, like, no, Tyler, like, you look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I'm not going to drift anymore, right? I'm not going to do this. So, you got to be able to take that wheel back. So here are some ways you can do that, right? One is the pause rule. You can't correct while you escalate. So what you have to take 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever you have to do to pause rather than react. You can't pause, you can't react and expect things to get control. Okay? And if you do react, make sure you apologize and repair that reaction, okay? Because that'll eat you up inside as well. If you don't repair it, it's going to eat you up, and then you're going to go down to the other levels where you're end up drifting and lost and not know where you're at. It's going to be in a cycle. You're going to be in a cycle of just challenges all the time. So one is the pause rule. 10 seconds is what I go. The 10 minute. You do 10 minutes, 10 seconds, whatever it takes to get you to understand that you have to come back to reality a little bit and not overreact. You don't overreact and then regret it later, right? So the second one is your tone, right? Are you happy, or are you, man, I'm just depressed, I'm sad, this sucks, this is brutal. I've realized your voice tone and language that you speak to yourself are really key patterns to your life. They're key patterns to being on another level. They're key patterns to get you out of a funk. If you're sad and down, it's never going to get you there. You have to tell your brain, hey, I want to be better. I want to be stronger. I'm going to get there. read something, watch something that's inspirational, watch something that gives you that light, whatever it takes. Go walk around, get out of your head. In your tone, you got to have a good tone of voice. Don't yell, don't scream, don't get so mad, because it's never going to work. You have to just lower your tone, keep it low before you react to that deal. So, and then the third thing would be daily standards. Look, these are key. This is key for what I've had to go through, right? And things that I've gone through. You have to have non-negotiables. You gotta have non-negotiables. You have to have 3 non-negotiables at minimum. You can't keep negotiating with yourself. You have to have 3 non-negotiables. One for me is the gym. I have to read, and I have to walk my dog. Those are my 3 non-negotiables. If I miss those, my day is going to be kind of rough. Of course, those are my personal ones. The other ones, I have other non-negotiables that are: I have to be present with my kids. I have to be emotionally present with them, not just physically present with them. That's key for me to keeping my moods upbeat, my emotions upbeat. I have to be in this place where I get some alone time, but I also get the family time. That's non-negotiable for me. I have to get some alone time to breathe and think through my thoughts. Okay, that's a non-negotiable. So you have to have non-negotiables. I want you to write down, if you're listening to this, write down 3 non-negotiables for your life. Just do it. Just write 3 non-negotiables. What is a routine that works for you? It could be running, it could be reading, it could be going to the gym, it could be, I love playing basketball. That's something I really enjoy playing, is basketball. If I have that at least once a week, I'm good. It helps my mind reset and just takes away everything, all the stresses that I have. Basketball, working out is a big thing. Go on a hike. There's so many different things. Whatever that you have a hobby doing. I've seen knife making. I've seen different things where shooting, gun ranges, whatever it is that you love to do, experience new things, do things. But you have to have non-negotiables that are routine, though. You have to do things that are you have to have them. You have to have them. You can't, if you don't do that, your life is gonna be in a spin cycle. Okay. The 4th thing I would say is identity decision. So everybody, I want you guys to say, I'm driving. I want you guys to clearly say that over and over again. Post it on your phone, whatever it is. Post it on a mirror in your car. Do something to where it says you're driving. And what that means is you don't take control back with motivation. You take it back with discipline. Okay? You don't take it back with motivation or inspiration. Okay? You take it back with discipline. Okay? Discipline starts with having the non-negotiables, having the gratitude, the gratefulness that you have in your life. And sometimes it takes a coach to do that. Sometimes it takes a person to be accountable, even a partner. Anybody that's accountable, that can be an accountability coach to you or accountability person to you, that has also helped. Just keep your discipline. Whatever it takes to be disciplined, use it. Find your discipline. So I want to talk to the single fathers, because that's obviously kind of what I've really transitioned to, because that was my life. That's been my life of the challenges that I've had to go through, especially the past several years. So I want to talk directly to the single fathers out there, and this could go with any other father, but listen, you can't always control your custody schedule. Of course, thankfully I was blessed to be able to have that with mine, to where it was amicable. But I know there's a lot of fathers out there that they're just begging for one day with their kids. They're begging for a few hours for their kids. They're begging to even see their kids. And that's hurtful. Because I wish that mothers would understand how important it is for their kids to have their father in their life. I wish I could just tell them directly, and hopefully this message gets to them, how important they are. Because you can try to control your child, but eventually your child's going to figure it out. And eventually your child's got to go into the world, and they need somebody that's guiding them, not just their mother. They need a man. They need a person that that can get them structured, they can get them motivated and really at the last of it is disciplined. Like I've told you, it's not about motivation. It's something that gets them disciplined. The mothers, you can discipline them all you want, but it's not about that. You have to be disciplined. So you can control, listen, if you can't control what happened, you can't control your exes or ex or whatever. If you're one ex, of course I have two exes. You can't control what they do, okay? You can't control how they act. You can't control that. But what you can do is you can control how you react. You can control how you set the boundaries. You can control how you lead your children when you have them. So you can control all those things, okay? You can control how you are when you don't have your kids, okay? If you just had some structure, if you had some internal structure, some outsourced structure, like my coaching program that I have, the hero method, you can control these things, okay? And realize that it's not about grinding to just survive. You have to have a plan. You have to have clarity. So I've had seasons where emotions drove me, where stress has driven me, fear has driven me. But look, I've made a decision, and I'm making a decision every day that I'm driving. Okay, I'm not going to let somebody else control my life. I went through a bad investment situation recently, and I feel like I've told this story to so many people, and I've had to have conversations with so many people about that whole situation because there's some people involved, but I let somebody else control that situation. I trusted somebody else rather than really me taking control of that situation. I fumbled that, and I own that. I'm accountable for that, okay? The consequences are what they are because I let somebody else control and ruin the plan that was in place. I let that happen. I let somebody control my financial future rather than me control it. And that was a big problem for me, But listen, I've made the decision, and you have to make it every day. You're driving. You have to read it out loud. You're driving. You're driving your own vehicle. You're driving and creating your own path. If you're a single father and you feel off track, look, start with a reset, okay? If you're ready to build deeper, this is what my program's about, the hero method, okay? You have to realize you don't have to be a perfect father or a man. Nobody's perfect out here. Your kids don't need a perfect father. They need a father who's driving, okay? They need somebody that knows where he wants to go, knows how he wants to get there, knows and understands that it's not going to be an easy, smooth trajectory road. You're going to take your licks. You're going to take risks that don't work. Been there, done that. I've taken risks that don't work. You're going to have positives too. You're going to have things that you didn't expect happen to you that are happening. It's not all bad, but you have to drive somewhere. You have to make a decision. Get off the fence and realize that you have to be the driver of your own vehicle. Okay? This is how you become the hero to your children's stories. You fight through your personal struggles, your mental struggles, your avoidance, your stress. You fight through all that, right? But at the end of the day, you have to fight for a purpose. Your kids are your purpose. Your kids should be your why, right? That's my why, is my kids. Your kids should be your why. So I want you guys to remember today, as we close up, if you guys need any assistance, any support, contact me, DM me on my Instagram at Inspiring Father. I'm helping fathers out there right now where we're going forth on going through the methods, getting them back to stabilized leaders and leading with intentionality and purpose, and understanding the emotions that they're going through they're all temporary, right? Everything's temporary. So if somebody out there needs to hear this, I just want you to remember this one thing. Drive your vehicle. Be the driver of your own vehicle. Control your life the way you want to be controlled, the way you want it. Set the vision. Go after your goals. Understand that things aren't going to work out exactly how you envisioned them, but realize that if you keep progressing one day at a time, one step forward, 1% better every day, it'll all work out the way it needs to work out. I appreciate everybody listening today. I love y'all. I'm grateful for all your support. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and week. Until next time, have a good day.